odd to be on a stage again. But great to sort of see all of you from under those lights. John, thank you so much for being here to talk to us about the world of cybersecurity. I want to dive right into this. This word has gotten an increasing amount of attention over the last couple of years, and I was looking through. So StatsCan's most recent survey results, which are from 2019, and we'll get into that part of it, the 2019 part of it, in a bit, say that 21% of Canadian businesses had experienced a cybersecurity incident that year, 2019. Yep. That was obviously the year before the pandemic, and we've had a lot of reporting through the pandemic of some spectacular incidents and some less sort of well-known ones. Has the pandemic increased the volume of incidents that we're seeing, that you're tracking, or does it just feel that way because everyone's at home now and sort of worried about what's coming through their router?
Yeah, thanks, and it's fantastic to be here and interact with real humans, so I appreciate the opportunity, and great to connect with you again, Murad. I think a couple things. The StatsCan survey was a great start, and my understanding is they have funding to continue that work. Cybercrime and cyber incidents are highly underreported in Canada, so it's really difficult to get some empirical evidence of what's actually going on. I think many people recognize today, and I think this is, if it wasn't before the pandemic, it's absolutely after, that our economy and every sort of fabric of our lives, businesses, governments, is inextricably linked with technology. And when that doesn't work well, and often when it doesn't work well these days, it's due to malicious activity. So, I feel the folks that couldn't get on a Sunwing flight last week, or the folks that were part of citizens of Newfoundland and having their healthcare impacted last fall, those are challenging things. And I think that this topic around cybersecurity is not just a problem that the nerds and the spies are going to solve for everyone here in Canada. We all need to engage in a dialogue. And so I think the point here is that this is absolutely linked to our every aspect of our lives. I also feel that certainly during the pandemic, this was a giant gift with a big bow on top for cyber criminals and other actors. Everyone working from home. There was a big transition for many organizations to adopt more digital technology, Zoom, Teams, working from personal devices. There was a lot of challenges in keeping our economy running, and keeping people employed and productive. And so that was certainly, Microsoft certainly observes a massive exploit. There's a lot of fear and uncertainty during the pandemic, and those adversaries really exploited that fear. We saw phishing lures and other types of attacks that were themed around, this is the World Health Organization, or this is the Public Health Agency of Canada, click here, right? And that was the kind of trend that we're seeing.
And so let's talk a little bit about where this is coming from. So yep. Who's committing these incidents? And does it matter whether it's a cybercrime group or a malicious nation-state actor?
Yeah, I think it does absolutely matter, because it matters because how we defend against those things and what we do to really combat those types of threats absolutely matter. So I'll break that down into three categories. The first is certainly the nation-state actors that Microsoft has teams that track these. Those attackers study our infrastructure, and they study our customers using our technology, so we study them back. And so the top four, which we've outlined pretty extensively in our digital defense report, and then a recent extensive report on the war in Ukraine, the cyber war in Ukraine, that was just released yesterday. I encourage folks to have a look at that. Russia's at the top, China, Iran, and North Korea. Those are all traditional espionage, intellectual property theft types of activities. And those actors, especially Russia, have really honed their tradecraft over the past number of years, especially using Ukraine as a bit of the punching bag for that. The Stuxnet, for those that turn back the time machine to 2010, the Stuxnet attack on the Iran nuclear enrichment capability then was really showed the world what a cyber weapon is capable of. That really delayed their program without any military engagement by about 18 months. And so all over the world for the past decade, all those nation states have been honing their cyber offensive capabilities. I think we've also seen some leaks of some cyber weapons tools from even the NSA and others. That all bleeds out into the ecosystem and enables these other states to improve their capabilities. So there's very much this duality of cyber defense versus cyber offense that's going on in the nation state. Category 2 would be cybercrime, which we mentioned previously, really just has upped their game during the pandemic. That's been a big gift for them. And I think what's important to recognize there is that that organization has just become immensely professionalized. There is a whole economy that operates there sort of traditionally under the covers, behind the scenes. They try to keep a low profile. Everyone here has heard of ransomware today, maybe not the case a few years ago. But these organizations are making hundreds of billions of dollars. And the economy that supports them, the supply chain, the collaboration that they're doing mirrors a normal economy that we have. And so they're very profit motivated. We can see them working 9-to-5 shifts. We know the countries in general where they operate. They're operating out of countries where the risk of prosecution is very minimal, right? They may have some affiliation with the state, and by getting that affiliation allows them to operate with relative impunity. And then I think the third area that is probably less known is what we call private sector offensive actors. And these are the private companies that are building spyware and selling them to governments looking to spy on their citizens, organizations with typical human rights abuses or oppressive governments. The Citizen Lab and the Monk School here in Toronto has really been forward-leaning, and we've done some collaborations with them to remove the veil of secrecy on that. And I think those are important because when you think about, it seems like we have so many vulnerabilities and these attacks are increasing. One of the factors we think about, in the context of something called a zero-day, so for folks in the room that aren't familiar with that, a zero-day is really a vulnerability that exists in software, but a vendor like Microsoft or Apple or Google doesn't know of that, so they can't update it. And so customers are vulnerable. And the market for those 0 days on the the security research community, those private sector offensive actors are paying millions of dollars for these 0 days, especially for like a Windows 0 day goes for about over $1 million. An iPhone 0 day is in the range of a couple $1 million today. And so those incentives to do the research and make the money and then sell them through those channels versus reporting them to industry are really key trends that are driving a lot of the attacks I think that we see.
Yeah, and I would encourage everyone to read the Citizen Lab's work on Pegasus and look at some of the actors, including nations that we might consider to be friends on the global stage that have been accused of engaging in that kind of action. But I want to talk about the way governments approach this in general. So you mentioned Stuxnet, and there's a book by a New York Times reporter whose name sadly escapes me right now.
Nicole Perloff.
That's it. This is how they tell me the world ends. That points to some of these unintended consequences of these things getting out into the world, the NSA tools and so on. Do governments need to be setting standards and sort of no-goes in the domain of cyber capabilities, the same way that we have for conventional warfare, global standards? And what role do you see for Ottawa, the Canadian government in that?
Yeah, I think that there absolutely needs to be recognition in this world of cyberspace. Private organizations, industry, tech companies especially, we operate the internet. We operate this, in the military terms, the battle space. And what does that mean? That means that national security, at least definitely in the cyber realm, needs to be a really strong partnership between governments, industry, and quite frankly, academia and many others. I had the opportunity to present at the Parliamentary Committee on National Security and the threats facing the Canadian Armed Forces from a cyber perspective. While that was great, I was invited, and I thank whoever nominated me for that within government, but I was the only industry person across 14 committee meetings. that provided the industry view. Like those, we need to continue to do better with that. And you certainly see Microsoft, I think, stepping up and providing a lot more transparency into what is going on. We've been, even back in 2017, we, came out at RSA, one of the big security conferences, and said the world needs a digital Geneva Convention, right? And that was sort of like, people were like, whoa, that seems pretty bold and sort of, kind of way out there. A lot of people are coming back to that after what's gone on and the incidents we've seen the last couple of years, and especially what's happening in Ukraine with the cyber weapon warfare that's going on to their critical infrastructure, their ability to provide humanitarian aid, et cetera, and targeting of civilians in that conflict. And so, I guess quickly, three key pieces that we've advocated for, and again, this is part of a broader multi-stakeholder dialogue that is happening and continues to happen, but certainly norms for nation states. What's acceptable norms of behavior for nation states in cyberspace? What are the acceptable norms for tech companies? And we've actually done quite a bit of work with what we call the Tech Accord on those norms, and have a number, over 100+ tech companies that have signed up to those norms. That's techaccord.org. And then third, which I think is the trickier part, is how do we get transparency into attribution, who's behind these types of attacks? You often see the Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity and the US government and the Five Eyes allies will kind of come out and do that attribution as a community. Microsoft has been doing a lot of attribution lately and trying to take the veil off some of these activities. Is that a UN body? We had some ideas in that Digital Geneva Convention concept, but we think there's an opportunity there to provide additional transparency on those aspects.
So I can see that timer, but I wanted to ask you to just give our audience maybe a last piece of advice as they go away from this, so that we're not just the doom and gloom guys today. What should they be doing proactively?
Yeah, so this is not a problem that the techies are going to solve or the security people in your company are going to solve on their own. This is a problem that needs to be, we need engagement across the broader community of organizations. So I think the top three recommendations would be the basics matter today around cybersecurity. The basics in terms of keeping your systems up to date. For those, hopefully everybody's familiar with what multi-factor authentication is. Your identities, where possible, should be enabled with multi-factor authentication. The vast majority of attacks that we see of our customers and the account compromises that we see, 95+% of those would be stopped by just enabling multi-factor authentication. And when we look across the various assets that Microsoft has, only 22% of customers globally have those things turned on. So easy, do the basics. Number two is really around fostering a culture of security. This isn't something your IT security teams are going to solve. We've seen really great benefits with organizations doing that awareness training, the human factor, having people understand that disinformation and these threats, they're being targeted, and really have that permission that people can report it. I think the part here we need to really lead with empathy and recognize that organizations and your employees or the people that are working in government, they're being targeted by these actors. They're professional attack groups, right? They're really good at what they do. The humans aren't going to be perfect, and so having that permission to report things after they happen is also super important, because time really matters. And then I think the third piece here is really just to continue to work together. This is not a problem that we're going to be able to solve on our own, and we need to continue to partner. Microsoft has a great relationship and long-standing partnership with the Canadian Centre for Cybersecurity. We're building that capability with the RCMP's National Cybercrime Coordination Center. But we need to work together.
Well, on that note, thank you so much for being with us and for sharing those insights. And thank you all for watching that with me. Right.
Thank you.